Okay, hey witches, this is going to be my first question and answer video. So I got a bunch of questions from Facebook and also from the comments on one of my past videos where I asked for questions. And I'm probably going to, some of these questions that I got are very loaded. Like I'm going to probably want to do a complete video for some of these. But I'll probably go ahead and give a brief answer in this video. Okay, so I'm just going to get into this. The first question that I got is, do I have any recommendations for a dream interpretation book or books? Okay, and I kind of talked about this already in my video on the spirit element. I don't put any stock in dream interpretation books as far as the ones that tell you like this symbol means this or that symbol means this, because every single person's own subconscious mind associates different meaning to each thing, each symbol, each experience, each relationship. To me, a gun might represent protection and safety. Okay, and to another person, a gun might represent danger. They may have feelings of fear associated with it. Just as an example. So if I dream of a gun, it would mean something to me. And if you dream of a gun, or if that other person in my example dreamed of a gun, it would mean something different to them. So dream interpretation is really, it's a very personal thing. You should be the one to interpret your own dreams. Now there are some dream interpretation books where like briefly in the beginning they'll tell you like this is all based on so many people's association with the symbolism, and you should really be the one to interpret your own dreams and your own symbolism. And how to interpret dreams really is going to be based on what thoughts and feelings do you have about the symbols that were shown to you in the dream. And aside from the symbols, aside from the thoughts and feelings you have for the symbols themselves, how did you feel overall in the dream? And what was going through your mind overall in the dream as the entire dream was playing out? Different things like that will help you come to better understanding of what the dream means to you and for you. Now, with that said, you can also pray and meditate and ask for spiritual guidance from your deities on your dream interpretation and better understanding it too. And delve into the practices of lucid dreaming so that you can better understand your dreaming mind. Keep a dream journal daily. Like make this a religious practice, you know, like part of your daily routine. Make sure that you do this, because really what you have with dreams is there's an entire part of your mind that you do not have conscious awareness of. It's called your subconscious. And by learning or by documenting and recording your dreams, and then making an effort to interpret it and understand it, what you're actually doing is you're doing a case study on your own subconscious mind and getting a better grasp on yourself, okay? You're making a large part of what's considered the psychological shadow conscious. So, I don't know if y'all just heard the popping, but you will increase your power in consciousness because of that. So I do put a lot of emphasis on dream work and understanding your subconscious mind. If you do this, you will get to a point to where you will not necessarily have to always do dream work to understand your subconscious mind. Like, there's different methods and ways for you to get in touch with your subconscious mind while you're awake, and not have to just do kind of a study on yourself while you're sleeping through the dream interpretations. But it's just another method of knowing your subconscious mind, okay? So it's very important. No, to answer the question directly, I do not recommend any books on dream interpretation, but I hope that the answer that I did give is helpful. All right, the next question, and I didn't take down names, so I'm just saying the questions, not who they're from. The next question was about magical confidence. Someone was asking me about, or someone was telling me that they face problems in the area of magical confidence, and they were asking me how can they stop that, or how can they increase their magical confidence. Really, my answer's not going to be like something profound, but practice. The same way as anything else that you develop confidence in, practice makes you better. Practicing makes you feel more confident. So the more that you keep practicing magic and witchcraft, even if you don't feel confident about it now, keep practicing it anyways, and don't let that deter you. And as you continue on your path, confidence naturally builds up. So I really don't know how else to answer that question. One other thing I could add to that is faith, the power of faith. If you have strong faith, that can help you overcome a lack of confidence, because you don't necessarily have to believe in yourself. You can have faith in a deity that is helping you with a spell or something like that, and that's like a mental trick that you can do and use on yourself to have more confidence or to overcome the struggle of confidence. Just put your faith in more devoted a way into what you're doing and into whatever spirits or deities that you're working with. Okay. The next question. Someone was asking me about titles in magic. Like, do I think that titles are important, or how much power do titles hold? I don't really think a title has any power. It might, to an extent, have a social influence. Like, if you call yourself a witch, people who see you calling yourself a witch will, have some kind of a that will have some kind of an influence on how those people think of you, for good or bad. You know, some people think that witchcraft is evil, and they'll view you in that way. Some people think that witchcraft is a good thing, and they'll view you in that way. So I guess titles, yeah, they have like a social influence, but do they have power? I don't think so. I think that, you know, someone can just call themselves something and for that social influence, but they may not really be it. So, you know, somebody could call themselves a witch and use that title, that label, and have a social influence because of that. But are they really a witch? Are they really practicing witchcraft? And, you know, are they really a powerful witch? Okay, who knows? So I don't think that titles hold power. I think that they, like I said, I think that they have a social influence, depending, but I don't think that they actually hold any power in and of themselves. It's just a label. Okay. Another question, getting started picking deities. Now that is a really loaded question because I could do an entire video on that in and of itself. But to summarize for this question and answer video, what are you drawn to? You know, what are your goals with magic? What is your agenda? What are you trying to achieve with magic and witchcraft? If you can answer that question, then take that answer and look for deities, gods and goddesses that align with those core goals, and you know, that can help you find a matron or a patron deity. Now, as far as that goes, I also do believe that the gods and goddesses themselves have a say-so if they're going to be your matron or patron or not. I don't think that you can just choose a god or goddess and say, like, this is my patron deity. You know, you have to build a relationship with that deity. And do they choose you back? Okay, it is a relationship. It's not a one-sided thing where you're just like saying, this is my patron. You know, they have to be engaged in that relationship. So I will include that, but as far as getting started with picking, you know, what kind of deity you want to pursue building a relationship with, it would be how I said, okay, find out what are your core goals with your practice, and do your research and find out which deities align with that. Okay, then on that note, you can watch my previous video, how to begin working, or how to work with deities and spirits, something like that. It's in my channel. I have some playlists available. You can look in the spells and lessons in magic playlist, and it's in there. Okay. Then the next question was about choosing magical traditions. You know, that's something that once again is going to be very personal. You need to ask yourself some questions of, like, what what are your goals with magic? What, not necessarily just goals either, but also what are your ethics? You're going to have to come to some kind of an understanding within yourself of how do you view magic and its usage. Because in certain traditions like Wicca, they have a rule of harm none. Okay, and maybe that will fit with you and maybe that won't. You know, in other forms and branches of magic, like gray witchcraft, black magic, we use baneful magic when we think it's necessary. So we will harm, you know, with magic because we think it's necessary sometimes. So when it comes to choosing your magical traditions, really, you know, just research about them and see what they stand for, see what their ethics are, any kind of dogmas or moral codes or anything like that. Study into that, research into that, and see if it aligns with your views or not. And maybe talk with some people that are already in that tradition to get more of a personal window into that tradition rather than just like reading something online or in a book. You know, talk to somebody who's in that tradition and see if, you know, you resonate with them and with that path. Now, with that said, I'm not one to believe that you really have to choose a magical tradition. I'm an eclectic witch, also hereditary, and like I view all of spirituality as just one thing, and that includes all religions. That includes witchcraft, that includes Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, the African diaspora religions, and just anything that I feel drawn to, Viking and Norse mythology and religion, anything. And I will draw elements from whatever I feel I resonate with and use that in my practice. So, that's my take on that. Okay, someone asked me, how did I come up with my witch name? Okay, I did not come up with my witch name. Hekate was a name bestowed on me from goddess Hekate, and that's the name that she gave me as her oracle. I have other witch names that I don't share publicly because a lot of people believe you're supposed to keep your witch name a secret. So, my witch name, Hekate, isn't really a name, it's more of a title given to me as, you know, a representation of my oracle status for goddess Hekate. If you break down that name, it means he of the goddess Hekate, okay. So that's how I came up with that one. It was just given to me. With that said, your witch name really needs to reflect your unique relationship with magic, with the spirits, and your unique persona, magically speaking. And you can come up with it on your own. I mean, in some traditions, you're given a witch name by your teacher. I would never subscribe to that. Or any kind of formal initiations or anything like that. That's just not for me. But, you know, definitely you can work with your main deities. If you already have a matron and patron deity, you can ask them to help you come up with a witch name. Or if you just, you know, want to come up with it on your own, I would recommend something along the lines of delving into, you know, what makes your magical personality unique. Where do you draw power from the most? And what kind of spirits and deities do you work with the most? Just different things like that. I mean, there's really no right or wrong way to do it. You can just make one up off the top of your head that you just like. The main point with the witch name, really, I think, is the fact of reclaiming your own identity. Because the names that we're born into this world, and someone just gives us a name as if we're property or a pet. And I think the whole process of choosing your own witch name is a psychological, spiritual process of, you know, naming yourself, reclaiming that power to be whoever and whatever you want to be. So from that, the way that I view it like that, you know, you can name yourself whatever the hell you want, and, you know, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you are naming yourself something. And you can change your witch name. It doesn't have to stay the same either. Like I said, I have several. You know, the Hectarios one is the one that Hekate gave me as an oracle. I have another one. I actually have two others, and I shared one on here before, and the other one is an absolute secret that I don't share with anyone. So, yeah, that's my take on that, witch names. Okay, someone asked me for book recommendations for learning Theurgy magic. Theurgy magic is high magic, ascension magic, magic that is focused on yourself becoming more powerful rather than focused on results in the outer world and spell casting for manifesting. Theurgy magic is more directed in ascending your own self. Okay. As far as book recommendations, honestly, I learned Theurgy magic a lot from personal experience. That's just the route that I like to go in the majority of my magics. I like to just learn on my own. So I don't really have any specific books that I can recommend, but that really cover all of it in a nutshell, or even in depth. But I will recommend the book Hekate Sotera by Sarah Johnston if you want to know some Theurgy magic along the lines of with Goddess Hekate. I also listed on my notes any books about Hermeticism and Hermetic magic, Hermetic philosophy. Any book that you can find on those subjects will get you started on the path of learning theurgy magic. Theurgy magic is about aligning yourself with the divine mind, with the higher power. Lower magic is about more so you imposing your own will on reality. And then the high magic is about raising your own self to the higher will and alignment with it, which increases your power immensely. So, get into subjects like astrology, numerology, working with deities and evoking them, different things like that, but definitely hermetics and hermetic magic, knowing the universal laws and these different things like that will really help you get started on that path to learning theurgy. Okay. Someone asked me, do I have my own astral / spiritual sanctuary? I did at a time have an astral meeting place, sanctuary, temple with some other witches that I was involved with, long distance. We were doing regular magic together. I actually had a coven through a secret Facebook group, and we all lived long distance separate from each other, but we all created together an astral temple, and we use that sometimes. So I have had that before. I don't really have much use for that right now in my practice. Under the circumstances, I just don't need that at this time. But definitely if I was in some kind of situation, like whenever I was younger, and there was a time period when I lived with my dad, and he was Christian, and that entire side of my family is Christian. And so I wasn't able to have like altars and different things like I have now physically in my home. In cases like that, I think an astral temple is very helpful because, you can sit in a room that's full of mundane things, go into a meditative state, and superimpose, an altar or effigies of your deities and different things like that in the room around you, and that could become your astral temple. You can just make this a place that you go to in your mind's eye. A forest setting or something else. Like the astral temple that I had with my coven, we had it set in a forest setting with a circle of like a Greek style temple, but circular shaped with columns and a fire pit in the middle, and different things like that. Like you can really create it however you want. But if you're really good at visualization and using your imagination, your mind's eye, your third eye, to visualize in depth for prolonged periods of time, you could do entire rituals and stuff in the astral realm while you're physically just sitting in a mundane office or workspace or your bedroom or your house. And you can have all of your tools, all of the ingredients for your spells, everything like that. You can just have that done in the astral realm, really. So I thought that was a good question. But to answer it directly, no, I don't have an astral spiritual sanctuary at this time. Okay. Someone asks me, what do I think about vampirism? And they broke it down into 2 questions. As far as like the modern culture of actual people who drink blood, and like that whole vampire subculture thing that's going on in modern times, and then as far as psychic and energy vampires. Okay, what do I think about vampires? I'm going to keep the question focused on that. I'm going to keep my answer focused on that exact question of what do I think about vampires. I did a video already about psychic vampirism. It was just a short introduction video, but I did talk about it a little bit. And I also touched upon it in one of my Oracle of the Red Dragon videos about the Earth's Kundalini awakening. In one of those videos, I was talking about life force energy, which is what Kundalini is, and how our different relationships with people either add to that or take away from it. And somewhere in that video, I talked about psychic vampirism as being a draining type of relationship, off balance and centered mostly on that person is draining you and never giving back. Okay. But what do I think about vampirism? Okay. As far as people who actually drink blood, you know, do what you will. That's how I think about everything. Usually, I mean, unless someone's actually causing harm to like children or something like that, you know, then I'll have like a say so of like, you know, I'm not okay with that. But I mean, if everyone's consensual with certain things, then, you know, do what you will. This isn't something I really know a lot about or cared to as far as the subculture of people who actually drink blood. So I don't really have much to say on that. But to answer the question of what do I think about it, I mean, it's whatever. Do what you want. I think it's kind of gross. That's just my opinion. And I think there's scientifically like dangers involved with drinking other people's blood. I think that you can only consume so much blood before it becomes toxic to your digestive system. Just scientifically speaking. So I think it's kind of reckless in a way also, but you know, once again, if these people are doing it, they must know what they're doing. So they're probably only drinking certain amounts. I really don't know that much about it, so I can't really put an in-depth answer or discussion about it other than to just answer the question simply. Now, psychic and energy vampirism is a really loaded topic. Because once again, if you look at the videos that I was talking about that I've already posted, kind of on the lines of psychic and energy vampirism, there's layers to it. You know, some people are malignant psychic and energy vampires, and they're doing it in a malicious way on purpose. They're aware of it. Some people don't even know that they're doing it, and I think to a degree, we all do psychic vampirism and energy vampirism on some level. Because as I was talking about in that Kundalini video about life force, every interaction that we have with another person, there's an exchange of energy. So we're all exchanging energy every time we interact with someone else. You watching this video, you're receiving energy from me right now. Just by watching this, just by interacting with me, even though it's pre-recorded, there's an exchange of energy. If you choose to like, subscribe, comment, something, you're giving energy back. Even if you're just watching this and you agree with anything that I say, you have any kind of positive thoughts towards me or what I'm saying, you are giving me energy back. There's an exchange of energy there. If you're judging anything I say in this video, or, judging something about my personal character, anything right now, then you're sending negative energy, or you're just drawing energy and feeding on me. There's always an exchange of energy in some way. When you're interacting with another person. So, really when we say terms like psychic and energy vampire, we're talking about like an extreme of that interaction and that exchange where something is off balance. It's not balanced. So we notice the vampirism effect. But really, we're all feeding on each other constantly. And also feeding each other constantly. Okay? So because there's different layers to it, I don't really have like a blanket summary of what I think about vampirism, psychic energy vampirism. I mean, I think many things about it. Depends on what layer we're talking about and what level we're talking about. I think that people who do it on purpose, people who know that they're doing psychic vampirism and they're doing it on purpose in a malicious way, I think that's kind of fucked up. Because there's other ways to get energy, without having to do that. At the same time, I'm not gonna lie, I've used psychic and energy vampirism on certain enemies before, where I felt justified in doing so. But would I just use it on someone that's innocent? In my mind, that there's no justified reason to do it, I wouldn't. But if I was able to justify it, like if that person did something to harm me or my family or something, I might do it. So like I said, I have many thoughts about it. It just depends on what layer we're talking about. I just think it's another means by which you do energy work. Okay, the next question. What do I think about baneful magic? And using magic to harm others. Someone asked me that. Well, my thoughts on it are, I find that my thoughts on it fluctuate. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Sometimes I'm okay with it, and other times I get this like holier than thou type kick, and I just judge it and look down on it. And then other times, I find ways to justify it in certain aspects and areas. So my views fluctuate a lot with certain things because, we're living organic being. New information comes into us, new experiences, and, if we're not fixed and set in our ways, if we have an open mind, then we remain changeable based on new information coming in. So, originally I started off into magic, doing Baneful magic. I came from a somewhat Christian background, before my mom revealed to me about witchcraft and stuff like that. When I was 13. Prior to that, my background had been Christian. So when I first came into magic, I thought it was all baneful in general. And I used it to get even on people who had, fucked with me. And different things like that. So when I first came into magic, I was very baneful with it. And I had to learn balance and different things moving forward with it. I have never really fully come to a place where I judge it. But there's been times when I decided I wasn't going to practice it. And then I reverted back to practicing it again at certain times. So, I don't know. I think for the most part, the fluctuating between baneful magic or not is kind of something that maybe all witches go through. I don't know. But in my personal path, I've fluctuated back and forth with it. But I do feel like I'm getting to a point, particularly right now, where I'm probably not going to fluctuate anymore with that. There just might be times where I choose not to practice it for whatever reasons. And then there'll be times when I will. Okay? I think it just always depends on the circumstance and the case that you're dealing with. When you're thinking of applying baneful magic or not. For example, like at some points in my practice, I think this is y'all can even witness me fluctuating here on my channel. Because in some of my past videos, I was talking about, like, I wasn't going to practice baneful magic and stuff anymore. But at this point in my life, I do again. It's just, it really depends on your point of view, because in some ways, I can see why people say baneful magic isn't necessary. Like, if someone does harm to you, you can just do a binding spell on that person to make them stop. You can just do, instead of doing a reversal spell, which will send harm back to that person, you could just neutralize the energy. You can just focus on protection rather than on, offensive means of protecting yourself. You can just focus solely on defensive protections. A good idea that someone brought up before was, if you're dealing with an enemy that's cursing you or something like that, you can cast a love spell on that person to change the whole dynamic of how that works. how that's going on there. So I can definitely understand that there is different methods of dealing with enemies that don't require baneful magic. And I can understand why, that's like taking the high road, okay? I get it. Now that said, okay, if someone hurts my family or me, I'm not going to take the high road, okay? I'm going to use baneful magic on that person. And I'm not going to think that there's anything wrong with that. If they try to hurt me or my family, I might take the high road. But if they actually do succeed in it, I'm going to hurt them. And most likely the people that they love. Okay? So, that's my whole take on that. The next question I got is a witch born or made? Or both? I could probably do an entire video on this in and of itself. I think I did touch on this in one of my videos already. I think I talked about hereditary witches and blood witches. Okay. Let me see, because I know I did a video on it before. I'm pretty sure it's in my playlist of the spells and lessons of magic. I don't think I put the title. I don't think I indicated in the title of the video, though, about that I was talking about hereditary witches versus other witches. So I can't exactly remember what video I talked about it in. But I just know I did. I'm just looking at my videos real quick. Actually, you know what? I think I put it in. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I might edit this to cut the waiting time. I shared my views on blood witches and hereditary witches in my video, I am an oracle of goddess Hekate. So I give an in-depth look into my views in that video. But as far as is a witch born or made or both, I think it's both. I think that some people are just born, naturally gifted. I think that some people are... Okay, let me backtrack. I think that everyone can do magic. Period. Now, with that said, I think that some people are born gifted with the light switch turned on automatically, so to speak. I think other people have to work for it. It's like a learned skill that they just acquire in life. So I guess my answer is both. And also, too, even someone who is born naturally gifted, they can benefit from learning the skill of witchcraft, because it's the discipline, it's the training. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. You could have all the power in the world, but if you don't know how to use it correctly, are you really a witch? You know what I mean? So that's just my answer to that. To keep it short. Even though this video is an hour long already. Okay, another question is, what do I think of witches who don't use their abilities to help themselves and who just keep living in suffering? I think that's sad. I would have to ask, with that question, I would have to return and ask a question of, what are their reasons? Why are they doing that? Why are they not using their abilities? Why are they allowing themselves to stay in suffering? Why does anyone do that, let alone a witch? Why does anyone do that? We all certainly have the power to, raise our life above suffering. But many people are not disciplined enough to do so, or they're not, in some cases, they're not what is the word? No, I guess that is the word, discipline. They're just not disciplined enough to do it. Sometimes, it takes cutting off other people and certain things like that, and sometimes that's even family members. Sometimes it's people that you love, but they are a negative influence in your life, and they're a cause of the suffering. And so You know, are you disciplined enough to do what you need to do to get out of that suffering and to relieve it and to move on to better things, better relationships, better circumstances? What do I think about witches who don't use their power, their abilities to help themselves? I think it's sad. I think that they need to develop self-mastery and self-discipline. You know, at the same time too, though, some of these people may be very self-disciplined and self-mastered, and simply because they love someone that is a cause of suffering, they put up with it anyways. I don't like doing general answers to questions like this because every single person is unique. Every situation that a person can face is unique. This world isn't a machine of clockwork. It's a living organic being. It's multiple living organic beings, and so it's constantly different. There's repeating themes, but it's constantly different. So it would depend on what are the person's reasons specifically that I would form what I think of that witch who's not using their abilities to relieve the suffering in their life. Okay? In some cases I might think they're just stupid. In some cases I would think that, you know, they know exactly what they're doing and they're just putting up with it. It just depends, okay? The next question is, how long have I had Hekate as my matron deity, and how was I called to her? I kind of want to do a separate video on this topic, but I'll give a brief answer in this. Hekate first came to me, as far as in a way, I think Hekate has been in my life all along, okay? But how long has she been my matron deity? When did she come to me in that way? Was, I think, around I think it was in the year 2009, and yeah, like I want to say it was in the year 2009. No, I had dabbled with her previously to that, but when I truly like dedicated myself to her and like took it to that level was in 2009. I was called to her basically there was a time period when I was worshiping the goddess Tiamat, and I was basically a darker witch back then, completely unbalanced, through some kind of a way, I ended up losing my abilities for like 3 years. I think it was because of abusing my power. I was abusing it nearly constantly, doing baneful magic and stuff like that. And a lot of times there wasn't like a real justified reason either. I mean, the majority of the times there was, but a lot of times there wasn't. Not really. If I looked deeply into it, there really wasn't. But I just was a baneful witch, and I lost my abilities for like about 3 years. And it was during that 3-year period that I began basically, I just started completely over with my path of witchcraft. Previously to that, I had predominantly focused on casting spells with magic. During this 3 years, when I had lost my abilities, I focused on, the Sabbats, honoring that. Even though I didn't have my abilities anymore, I still went through the process of honoring things and, learning anyways. That's really when Hekate came to me more fully. And she became a spiritual guide, retraining me, like, properly through the different occult knowledge. I guess your question is, how was I called to her? I don't really think I was called. Okay, let me backtrack. I think that my call to Hekate was a call to the wisdom of this path itself, combined in with that. Hekate is the initiator of the mysteries. She's the goddess of initiation. And I'm not talking about, human initiations and rites of passage. I'm talking about a true initiation from the spirits themselves. It's a spiritual thing that just happens in your life. And I think that when I lost my abilities for those 3 years, and it really just felt like as if your soul had been ripped from your body and you had no access to the spiritual anymore. And at least that's how it felt to me. I just felt like a being of flesh and physicality. I felt like I did not have a soul anymore, or any connection to that. It was probably the most horrible time in my life, honestly. But even during that, I stayed focused on, I was humbled, first of all. And I then began to really focus on learning the true spirituality of magic. Because prior to that, I was focused all on spell work and using magic for me, like in my ego pretty much. And then during this 3-year time period, when I lost my abilities, I genuinely became, humbled and curious about the spiritual reality in and of itself. And it was during that time when Hekate really came through to me strongly. And by the end of that 3 years, comes to the year 2009, and that's when I dedicated myself to Hekate and to the craft of witchcraft in that more of a spiritual sense, as a path to ascent. And I slowly regained my abilities over time. Or rather, I actually slowly gained new abilities. I never gained back the same powers that I had before. I gained back different ones over time. Okay, the next question. What is my favorite way to unwind? I guess it just depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes I just like to lay around and lounge around, read some books, whether that would be nonfiction or fiction, just whatever. Sometimes I just like, chilling and watching movies and TV shows that I like. Other times I'll take it through a spiritual lens and meditate and do different grounding rituals and different things like that. Sometimes I just like being outside, going on walks in the woods. Usually when I do that, I actually look for bones and different things to use in my magic. Of course, there's also wine. Which is a great accompanying spirit for unwinding. And just talking, talking with friends and family or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's the same as everyone else, aside from walking in the woods and finding bones. The other methods, I'm pretty sure everyone does. I don't really know if I have a favorite way. It just depends on, what do I need to unwind from specifically. If it's just typical, everyday stress, probably watching movies and just getting my mind off of it. If it's I've been dealing with a problem person that's just been oh my god, I would probably want to unwind by venting about it, talking with someone else. If it's some kind of spiritual thing, I would want to unwind by grounding and ritual, meditation. So I hope that answers that question. The next question is, somebody asked me about, with what is going on with Goddess Hekate right now, what workings would be good to do for Goddess Hekate at this time. So if you watch my videos about Goddess Hekate, you know what this person's talking about. I would really, what I've been doing is just giving her a lot of offerings all the time. You know, a lot of times with deities, I feel like people's relationships with them is a lot focused on receiving from the deity, you know, aside from offerings that they give back. Really, during this time with what's going on with Goddess Hekate, I have been learning a lot about, you know, giving to her. And I don't just mean physical offerings or food and wine offerings and, you know, candles and herbs and incense that you burn to her. I have been doing all of that, you know, more so than I used to normally do. But also, you know, energetic offerings to her. I have been sending her prayers of gratitude and love every single day, and visualizing, sending energy from my heart chakra into her world soul atmosphere around the entire earth. I've been doing different things like that. So, you know, I can't really tell you what should you be doing, because I don't do that. But I will give you those examples of what I've been doing for her recently. So I hope that helps your question. Okay. Someone asked me in my other video, I was talking about the kittens that my mom's cat recently had. And someone asked me, can they see the kittens? So, yes, you can. Okay. So the next question is, someone asked how to get started in witchcraft. I will do an entire video on that, because that is just a loaded question, okay? I'm not going to answer that here. Another question someone asked is, they said that they're experiencing drainage, fatigue, and just being very tired after spell casting. That sometimes lasts for days or even weeks after. I want to say that you're doing something severely wrong if that's the case, because that just seems a little bit much. I mean, whenever I've done spells, you know, if it's particularly potent, I do feel drained and fatigued afterwards, but I usually regain my energy, like, you know, at most within a couple days, or at the least, you know, within a couple hours afterwards. So I don't know why you're experiencing extreme tiredness for days and weeks after you're doing a spell, but that seems like there's something completely wrong with that situation. Maybe you want to go to a witch and get like a reading done or something and understand what's going on with that, because I have no idea, honestly, why that's happening to you. I mean, unless I did a reading or something like that. I have had some, rare spell work situations that drained me, where I was doing a spell ongoing, like I keep doing repeated rituals or spells for a certain outcome. And over time of continuing to do that spell work, day after day, I would be drained for a more longer period of time as my energy builds back up. I guess what I would say to you, like, are you doing meditations and ritual to empower yourself? Do you practice that? I have cast several spells on myself to gain power in the course of how long I've been doing this. I have cast spells on myself that amplify my power, raise my power, awaken certain abilities, and different things like that. So maybe you need to look into that. And even if you don't go that far as casting spells on yourself that just grow your power in general, you could at least look into like chakra meditations and kundalini, and in the aspect of recharging yourself after ritual. So I hope that helps. The next question. Have I worked with deities of other pantheons? And I guess this person means besides the Greek and Roman. And do I think deities as Hekate experience jealousy in this sense? Okay. Yes, I worked with many different deities from many different pantheons. The Viking, Norse, the Egyptian, the Sumerian and Babylonian, the Greek and Roman, Native American even, Mexican. I have worked with many different deities from many different pantheons. And with all of that, no, I have never experienced Hekate being jealous or upset with me about that. With that said, I have never put any other deities before her, or I've never given any other deities more precedence in my life than her. So, but as far as that goes, I don't think that deities get jealous of that. I could be wrong, that's just my opinion, but I don't really think that they get jealous. How I tend to view it is like with friendships, Hekate would be like my best friend, and all the other deities are just like my other friends. Some of them are more closer than others. You know, is your best friend going to be jealous that you have other friends? You know, I guess that could be possible, but I don't know for sure. But I have never experienced Goddess Hekate being jealous. And I have, in the past, worked with several other deities from different pantheons and in the same pantheon as her. And I still continue to this day, all the time. So, I hope that answers that question. Someone asked me, can anyone be an oracle for Goddess Hekate if they devote themselves to it? Once again, this is a question I really don't know, because I'm not sure how the deities go about choosing oracles. I have said before, you know, any witch can receive an oracle from different deities, okay? Especially from Goddess Hekate. She can give oracles to any of her witches, or just any witches in general. There's a difference between being an oracle and just being a regular witch or a regular priest or priestess that just receives oracles from time to time. Being an oracle is like a priestly position that you hold. Like you have your regular priest and priestess, you have your high priest and priestess, you have your oracles, like they're different. Positions in the priestly caste, or caste, however you say it. I guess I can just tell you how it worked for me. I started off as a witch. Then I dedicated and devoted myself to Goddess Hekate. Became a priest in her mysteries. After so many years and so much devotion to the mysteries, I became a high priest. And then I reached a point where Hekate came to me in a vision and said I knew her mysteries well enough and knew her well enough to become an oracle of her mysteries and of her. So at that time, she also did tell me that there was only 3 living oracles of her living on the earth at this time. And so I was one of them, and there was 2 others, basically. So, do I think that anyone can become an oracle, given with what she told me? No. It must be kind of rare. Because the deity has to choose you as an oracle. This is one of those questions that it's like, you know, when you grow up in America, they're telling us that you can become anything that you want to become in your life. This is a country of freedom. You know, anybody can become anything. But, you know, we don't all become everything. We choose. We make choices. and decisions along our path that shape our path. So in some instances, I want to say, like, it's possible that anyone can become an oracle. Is it likely? Is it going to happen really in actuality? Probably not. It takes a lot of devotion and study and surrender to the deity. Not many people can do that. And it's not even just about that person's own choices either. Like, things happen in life that, you know, shape your path to some extent, whether you're a witch or not. You know, I just happen to be living in a situation, in a circumstance where I was able to devote years of my life solely to the occult, to studying, to witchcraft, to goddess Hekate, without any other responsibilities or distractions. So it wasn't just my own will or my own choices. It was a large part affected by the outer circumstances of my life that allowed me to walk this path. So I guess I don't really have a definitive answer on this, because in potentiality, I think that, yeah, anyone could become an oracle to any deity. In reality of how things play out, I very much think that the gods choose who their oracles are going to be. So that's my answer to that. The next question. This is a really good one. Not that the other questions weren't good. They've kept me talking for an hour and 30 minutes. But I just really like this question. Someone asked me about premonitions versus manifesting. Basically, you know, are some of our thoughts psychic, or is us thinking about it as witches actually causing it to manifest? So that's a really good question. This is a question I have recently been asking. Well, this past year, this came up, and I came to my conclusions on it. So you're asking me at just the right time. It depends, okay? I think that definitely, you know, once again, I've said this in several videos, everyone, whether they are a witch, you know, or not, whether they're a witch, whether they've dedicated themselves to learning and understanding magic or not, and controlling it, everyone does magic, period. And we are all doing magic constantly. It never stops existing. Magic is life itself, and it's intimately part of life itself. We never stop doing magic. Every thought in your mind, every emotion that you feel, everything that you say, every action that you do has a magical effect as well as the mundane level of it. Everything is magic. So, when we get to this question, definitely your thoughts have an effect and can manifest without casting spells or without even meaning it to on purpose. This is actually an important question, and one of the reasons why I like it so much. During basically the 2 years when Hekate was really teaching me daily before she descended. After she made me an oracle at the end of 2012 and before she descended in 2015. Basically in the entire year of 2013 and 2014, when she was like severely teaching me daily and nightly in my dreams and shit. Like, she was on it, teaching me hardcore. Different things about magic that I consider like completely another level of magic. One of the things that she taught me was the importance of controlling your thoughts and emotions. She was teaching me secrets of power, basically knowledge that awakens your power and makes it that much more stronger. And one of the things that she reiterated to me was that, you know, before I learned these certain things that would bring me to the most maximum amount of power that I could have, I really needed to first learn how to control my thoughts and emotions 100%, all the time, 24/7. And she was like, until you do that, I'm not going to teach you these other secrets and knowledges of power, because the slightest mistake in your thoughts and feelings towards something or towards a person will manifest at lightning speed, like very fast and very powerfully. So this is still how it works in general. Maybe not as strong, maybe not as fast, but the more powerful that you become, the more that you need to be disciplined in controlling your thoughts and emotions, because, you know, you're becoming more powerful, so everything you think, feel, and say and do is going to have a greater repercussion, for good or ill. So that's important to know and to understand. And so self-mastery and self-discipline are of the highest importance in this path. And that's partially one of the reasons why these types of things are kept for the mystery schools. Because how are they going to give people all this power, but these people aren't disciplined on how they're going to use it and what it's going to be doing? Could you imagine the chaos that we would be living in We're already living in a world of chaos. Once again, people are doing magic all the time, whether or not they realize it or they're disciplined in it. They're doing it. And the result of that is we are already living in a world of chaos, predominantly. Imagine if these people were that much more powerful and still not disciplined. Now, on your question of, psychic premonition versus manifesting, there does seem to be some kind of an area where these overlap, which I found very interesting when I was contemplating the same question earlier this year. There does seem to be some kind of area where they overlap, but I did also come to the conclusion that they are separate. It depends where those thoughts originate. Are you thinking about something in particular, and then some kind of a psychic insight pops up about that? In that case, I would say maybe you are actually just manifesting it when it does come true later on. Okay. On the other hand, does some kind of psychic insight just pop into your head out of nowhere, out of the blue? Are you thinking about, something unrelated, and then all of a sudden this psychic insight comes into you about something completely different and unrelated? That's probably more likely an actual premonition or a psychic insight coming in. In that way. Now, why do I say that these overlap? Well, because where do future knowledge and magic and manifesting overlap? The psychic or the witch, I think that this is something that has been one of those things that people just try to understand for a very long time. It's something that I have questioned within myself, being an oracle on one hand. Hekate tells me things about the future. And on the other hand, being a witch, who casts spells, who manifests what I want for the future. What the conclusion I came to is, why not put the two together, If you get some kind of a psychic insight of, some kind of an outcome that you don't want, why not cast a spell to change that outcome? To be something that you do want instead. Premonitions and psychic insights. Maybe they're not set in stone. Hang on, y'all. I was recording this. Okay. But maybe your psychic insights and different things like that, your premonitions aren't set in stone. Maybe, there has to be some kind of a reason why they're coming into you to begin with. Maybe that's so that you can change the outcome if you don't like it. Maybe it's not just so you can know what is coming. Maybe it's so that you can, do things to change that outcome. So from that perspective, which is the conclusion that I came to, is, don't worry about your question of, are these thoughts that you're getting causing the manifestation of that event? Instead, when you get those premonitions and psychic insights, if you don't like, what they're giving you knowledge of, then definitely do some work to change that outcome. Experiment with that, see if you can or not. Now, this is something that, like I told you, this is something that I've been thinking about earlier this year, and it's been, something I've just thought about and been experimenting with myself. So, I don't really have conclusive, like I'm absolutely sure it's this way or not. But I think that a lot of things that come in as psychic insights are there. Or their reason for coming in is so that we can change it if we don't like that outcome. And now, with that said, have I been able to change any of my psychic premonitions that have been coming in? No. I feel, in retrospect, I have had opportunities to change it, but I didn't for some reason. I just didn't. And it ended up manifesting exactly what my psychic premonition was. So, and also too, with that said, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I did change it. So, I think this is my favorite question on this question and answer because, this is something I'm still deeply invested in thinking about myself. But unfortunately, at the same time, I really can't give you any kind of conclusive answers, only just my views on it so far. Okay. I hope that somewhat gives you insight, though, or something to go on. But the next question is it possible to channel new rituals in magic without having any kind of previous knowledge and practice in magic. Absolutely. Magic is born from creativity. Like I was saying a little bit ago, magic is constantly at work, whether we're using it on purpose or not, whether we're disciplined in the art of witchcraft and mastering it and controlling it or not, magic is constantly at work, period. So when you're talking about, using it consciously, that is something that's born out of creativity. And so absolutely, the answer to this question is, you can create your entire tradition of magic that you want. You can create an entire system of magic however you want it to be. That's not going to change how magic works. In and of itself, there is universal laws of how magic works. But you can absolutely create rituals and an entire physical system of using magic. Absolutely, from your own imagination, from your own creativity. Every spell, every ritual, every religious thing that exists today was born from some previous person's creativity and their expression of magic. So why can't you create your own today? There's like a million witches on this earth right now that make their own spells rather than copying something from a book or from another witch. I make the majority of my own spells myself. And I know that there's many witches who do that. So, absolutely. Even if you're not disciplined in witchcraft and understanding correspondences of the different herbs and crystals and all of that, we have what's called chaos magic, sigil magic. These are more along the lines of created directly from the mind of the magician rather than any kind of previous structure or system. So, absolutely you can. Okay. Just a few more questions, y'all. Someone asked me, what is my views on the Eleusinian Mysteries? How does Hekate relate to Persephone in those mysteries? And is Hecate's mysteries related to the Eleusinian Mysteries? Okay, so if you don't know what the Eleusinian Mysteries are, it's one of the ancient mystery schools of Greece, where they were centered on the goddess Persephone and Demeter, her mother, and Hekate played a role in that. In that system, Hekate was the initiator into the mysteries, as well as a guide through them. And a lot of what we factually, historically know about the Eleusinian Mysteries today basically in these ancient mystery schools, y'all, they did not play about keeping shit secret. So no one actually really knows for sure what the actual greater mysteries were, because the Eleusinian Mysteries and most all mystery schools were divided into the lesser mysteries, which they did in front of the public at times. They didn't really make such an effort to hide it. And then the greater mysteries, that was, under oath and secrecy, done with only the priest and priestess of those mysteries present. Now, with that said, what Hekate has taught me about this ancient mysteries tradition is that the greater mysteries of the Eleusinian Mysteries was about God consciousness and attaining that. And pretty much, yes, it is 100% related and intermingled with her own mysteries. So, to answer that question, yes. How does Hekate relate to Persephone? She's the guide. She, just like the myth says, she guides Persephone back out from the underworld to the world of the living. So she's absolutely connected to Persephone. She's a helper to her and a guide. But Hekate plays this role for everyone, or any devotee, any witch. She is our helper and our guide. She is the initiator. She's the matron of all witches, in that sense. Okay, another person asked me, or no, the same person asked me, am I aware of any past lives where I served the same function as a priest and oracle to goddess Hekate? I don't really remember a lot of my past lives. As far as the mundane aspect, but I am an old soul, and I have a deep knowledge and wisdom that came with me into this lifetime, and I've always had it. I've always had a deep wisdom that, was probably attained in the past lives. And so while I don't remember in any kind of great detail the past lives. I remember some of them, but I don't remember them all in detail at all. I remember very few, in fact, and it's only parts of those past lives that I remember. But the wisdom I gained, the knowledge, has remained with me at a soul level. I've spent a lot of this lifetime understanding that knowledge. Like the wisdom was there, it's been there. But much of my studying and learning has been in like understanding it at a more conscious level. I hope that makes sense. But to answer your specific question, I think that, possibly yes, I must have possibly been a priest or a priestess to goddess Hekate in a past life. As I understand goddess Hekate, though, I don't just view her through the Greco-Roman lens, or even through just the Chaldean oracle lens. I see her as the world soul, the cosmic soul, what Christians call the Holy Spirit. What other occult terminology, they call her the astral light. I understand Hekate to be this being that pretty much permeates all ancient religions and mystery schools and all ancient spirituality into the modern times even. So, whether or not I was an actual priest or whatever to Hekate in the sense of the Greco-Roman, I do believe that I've been connected to her in that spiritual way in all of my past lives. In some way or another, in some form or another. And I have retained the wisdom that I gained from that all the way through my lifetimes to now, to where I'm like a 26-year-old right now in this lifetime, and I've already reattained back to the level that I was at in my previous life, probably. In all of these mysteries and knowledge. And once again, like, I came into this life with this wisdom at the soul level, but it was a process for me of consciously understanding what it is, remembering, if that makes sense, by going through the initiations, through the mysteries again. I hope that makes sense to y'all. Okay, the next question. Once again from the same person. As an oracle, do I channel Hekate or do I just receive information from her? It's both. It started off to where I would just get communications from her like she was talking at me. In dreams, in visions, when I was awake, and like that's how it started. But as I progressed further along the path of being an oracle, it began to become channeling. So actually in that process, she actually taught me how to channel her. So that's how it progressed for me. So at this particular point, I really mostly channel when I want to talk to her. But there is still times when and when I channel, it's like a dialogue, okay, happening in my mind. It's telepathic. So that's how I channel. I don't like go into some weird trance and start talking as though I'm her. It's mostly telepathic communication, or what's called clairaudience, as well as coupled with that, she projects images into my mind, or scenes accompanied with that. So that's why I just like calling it telepathic, rather than breaking it down into like clairaudience, clairvoyance, and like all of that mixed together. It's just telepathic communication. Okay, there's a dialogue, there's images and scenes being shown to me. It's like a download, but I'm able to talk with her back, and it's a dialogue at the same time. And that's what I call channeling. I don't know how other people use that word or what they're referring to, but that's what it is for me. And I just call it channeling. So I guess that's the answer to that question. That was my last question, y'all, on here. I hope that helps y'all, or gives y'all, information to think about, to look into, and I hope that I answered everyone's questions in a helpful way. I want to keep doing these question and answer videos, so if you didn't get to ask me a question for me to answer in this video, leave your question in the comments below, and I will do another in the future. Okay? If there was anything that I talked about in this video that you want more, that you have like another question about, leave that below as well in the comment section. And I guess that about does it for this video. Thanks for watching. I cannot believe I did a 2-hour video, y'all. Oh my god. But thanks for watching, and I will probably continue on with my other videos I have planned for the channel. Alright, y'all. Blessed be.